Okay, so let's talk about negotiating with realtors now. Their number one concern is that you will close. Because no one wants to see their time go to waste. And, you know, part of the process of proving to an agent and to a seller is that you will, or that you will close, comes in the form of proof of funds, that you actually have the money behind you. Okay, you want to buy this house? Fair enough. Show us that you can do that. Because if you can't, we really don't want to waste your time or ours. Earnest money deposits. This is a big deal. I talk about this all the time on the Inner Circle Dealmaker webinars, on the Question Bank. Earnest money deposits are the Achilles heel, if you will, because you and I don't want to put up a big earnest money deposit. But the seller wants to see a big earnest money deposit. It's the ultimate, tug of war, if you will. The bigger the earnest money deposit, the more serious you look, because the more you theoretically stand to lose if you don't close. If you were the seller, wouldn't you feel that way? Wouldn't you want to see? And by the way, in this business, we don't sell like we buy. We don't buy like we sell. It's a total double standard, and that's the way it is. So, as a seller, I want to see a big earnest money deposit. As a buyer, I don't want to put up a big earnest money deposit. Banks are going to want to see bigger earnest money deposits than individual or private sellers. I tell folks that all the time. They say, look, if a $10 to $100 earnest money deposit is all you can swing right now, then let's focus on individual or private sellers, because that's all they'll require. In fact, some private sellers, they don't even want your $10. How many of you have ever dealt with a seller and you get to the part in the agreement where you say, okay, here's the part where I'm supposed to give you a little bit of money to make this agreement official. Notice I didn't call it a contract. Notice I didn't say legal and binding. I said, I need to give you a little bit of money to make this agreement official. And you reach into your pocket and you say, well, I don't know, how about here I got a $20 bill. And the seller, here's the question. How many of you have heard a seller say this? The seller says, nah, it's okay, I trust you. You don't need to give me anything. We're good. We're good. You don't need to give me anything. Who's ever heard that? Happens all the time with private sellers. You do need to give them something. If you have to grab the edge of their jeans and shove it into their pocket, you need to give them something in order for this agreement to be legal and binding. It's like any other agreement. There has to be some form of consideration to make it binding. So, with private sellers, you can expect teeny-weeny little earnest money deposits. With bank sellers, different story. You're looking at $500 to $1,000, I think, minimum. And then you'll get an agent who says, oh, this seller requires 10%. Well, let's see, I'm in California. I'm offering $300,000, so you want a $30,000 earnest money deposit. I forgot to Q-tip my ears. Did I hear that right? Is that what you said? 10%? Yes, 10%. Well, Mr. or Ms. Agent, just out of curiosity, I'm an investor and you're aware of that. Do you think that I can actually have a sustainable business if where I make an offer I have to put up 10% of whatever I'm offering every time I make an offer? Do you think that that would be a sustainable business model? And by the way, Robert, you deal with, I'm sure, several different banks, asset managers. Do the banks and asset managers ever tell you what they require as far as earnest money? Never. It's bull dookies. The agent is making it up. And they're deferring to higher authority. You ever heard of that negotiating gambit? Here's a, it's not me, man, it's my wife. I want to go drinking with you, but she won't let me. Or here's another way to describe that gambit is good cop, bad cop. Oh, it's great. Couples are so good at that, you know. One's usually just better at playing the good cop, and one's better at playing the bad cop. Works good with kids, too. They're usually in their teens before they figure it out. So, you know, look, FHA, HUD foreclosures, the last time I made an offer on one, they did have a minimum earnest money deposit. So if it was under a certain amount you were offering, it was 0.5%. If it was over a certain amount, it was 1%. That's the only example I've ever heard of where the lender actually did impose some sort of minimum earnest money deposit. Now you might say, no way, man, you're wrong. And I'd say, well, then you've got a realtor who's better at convincing you than me. Can you blame them, though? The realtor wants to see as much as they can possibly get on the table so they can go and spend their commission now. The more skin you have in the game, the less likely you are to walk away. So, how do we get around this? What do we do? Well, it would help to be working with a realtor who gets it and who's honest about it. And you might say to that agent, hey, look, I understand, why you want to see a big earnest money deposit. I get it. If I were in your shoes, I would too. But I need you to come around. I've looked at it from your perspective. Come around and look at it from mine. I can't be putting that kind of money up when I make an offer. It's not a sustainable business model. And my wife won't let me. So, if you are inclined and able to put up a larger earnest money deposit, that might be the deciding factor on the deal, though. You could make a higher offer than me with a smaller earnest money deposit, and I get the deal at a lower price because of a larger earnest money deposit. So what you'd like to do, I think, is get yourself to a position where you have the flexibility and the wherewithal to put up a larger earnest money deposit as soon as you're able, because that can be the deciding, the tipping point on you getting deals over the competition. I'll give you a quick example. I bought a house from an estate. It went through a very complex probate process. It took well over a year because the lady had not left the property to her heirs, her relatives. She left it to form a scholarship at her high school. And so there was a surrogate court involved, and it was very complicated. But I wanted the house. I knew the lady. And then when she passed away, I met her executor who came to the house. She lived in Florida. The house was up by me. It was on one of the lakes. And I met her executor, Jan, and I got friendly with her, and I helped her get the house cleaned out, and I did some stuff to just sort of make her life easy. And ended up, the end of the story is I bought the house. And in large part, it was because she wanted me to get it. And so she introduced me to the attorney who handled the deal, whose name was Tom Venuti. I mentioned that yesterday. And so I called Tom and I said, hey, I just met Jan. I knew Nardi. I want to buy this house. And he said, oh yeah, Jan's already told me about you. And I said, all right, well look, I'm calling to say hi. Here's my contact information. I realize this is going to be complex and it's going to take time. I'm here. Oops, I'm ready. I'm a cash buyer. You just let me know when this thing is saleable. About a year went by, and Tom and I talked back and forth many times. We talked about our daughters and their softball teams and all the things we had in common. We created some nice rapport. And I've actually done a few deals as a result of that relationship since then. So anyway, to make a long story short, when the surrogate court finally settled on what they were willing to accept for the house, which was dirt cheap, the place was worth in the mid-2s at the time, and they wanted $85,000. Now it was trashed though. It was really trashed. And the end of the story is I ended up tearing down the house. The land value was so high. So anyway, he called me and he said, okay, everything's settled. We can accept your offer. The least they'll take is $85,000. Now, first of all, do you think he should have told me that? No. But he did. So he said, so why don't you go ahead and get it in writing and get it over to me right away. So I said, okay, cool. Well, it had been like a year. So when we hung up, I thought, okay, good, we'll get that done. And all of a sudden the phone rang or somebody got my attention and, busy, not important, got in the way. And the next thing I know, it's 2 days later. And Venuti calls me and he says, hey, Skippy, I need that offer. I need it now because we have a little problem. Your neighbor over there, Walzak, just made an offer on the property. So now we got another player in the game. Had you gotten this to me the other day, we wouldn't have had this problem. And I was like, darn it. And I said, all right, well, how much did he offer? Do you think he should have told me? Do you think he did? Yes. He offered $85,000. So apparently he was free with that information with Walzak as well. Okay. So I said, okay, any contingencies? And he said, yeah, it's contingent on a satisfactory building inspection. Really? This place is a piece of crap. I guess he needs to pay somebody $350 to tell him that. Oh, and it's also subject to the sale of their house in Buffalo. Okay. How about earnest money? How much did he put up? And Venuti said, $1,000. And I said, okay, your fax will be humming momentarily. Put my phone on Do Not Disturb, grabbed a contract, started writing it up, $85,000, no contingencies. No. Earnest deposit, $85,000. So I put the thing in the fax. 5 minutes later or so, Deb calls down. My phone's on Do Not Disturb. She called me on my cell or something. I forget. She goes, hey, your phone's on Do Not Disturb. I got Venuti on line too, and he's laughing. Pick up the phone, and he's still chuckling. And I said, what's so funny? And he said, your offer. And I said, hey, this is not a joke. I screwed up. I want to make sure I get this place. And he said, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and submit these to the surrogate court now. And I'll let you know how it works out. I got the house. And Walzak hasn't forgiven me. Hey, think about it. I was willing to put at risk the entire purchase price, which means there will be no circumstances under which I am unwilling to close. Because if I do, I would lose $85,000. Now you might say, oh, that sounds great, Cam. I'm thrilled for you. But I can't do that because I don't have $85,000. And not to mention the fact I live in California and you can't even buy a garage for that. Although apparently in San Bernardino, the prices of houses have somehow managed to come back to earth. Anyway, yeah, you do. All you need is a private lender who understands that they have a vested interest in you getting the deal because they won't make 8 or 9% on their money if you don't. And so who is willing to go ahead and put up the 85 grand or 185 grand, whatever it is, now to ensure that you get the deal.